Overpaying for anything sucks, especially socks, so why pay $45 for a single pair of grip socks when you can spend less than half? Pure Grip Socks Pro feature our best materials for optimal fit, moisture wicking, and performance at a fair price, just $16.99 a pair at puregripsocks.com.
Speed. We all want it, but we can't all have it. Shout out to the slowest guy on the team rocking a pair of Superflies. However, regardless of your own personal athletic ability, it is undeniable that the speed boot category is by far the most popular in the football boot industry, which of course begs the question, what is the best speed boot you can buy? Which is why today I will be ranking the top 7 speed boots of 2022 from best to worst, starting with the worst. And I realize that sounds very negative, and depending on who you've pledged your football boot allegiance to, you might be a little bit upset with how I've ranked some of these football boots, which I'm sure you will let me know in paragraph form down below in the comment section. What I want to clarify, however, is that it's really difficult to rank these 7 football boots because all 7 of them are very good. So regardless of which one I've called the worst and which one I've called the best, depending on personal preference and depending on what you're looking for in a pair of football boots, even if it's just down to budget, you could have these in a very different order. I want to make it clear there's no bad choice out of these, but based on my own personal experience with all of them, as well as trying to be as objective as possible, this is how I would personally rank them. And before we get started, if you are interested in any of these 7 football boots, you can get all of them below their normal retail prices by way of some exclusive SR4U coupon codes by checking out the links down in the description. Quite possibly the best football boot I've ever had in the worst position in one of these videos, the Nike Mercurial Superfly 8 Elite is, in my opinion, the worst option out of the 7 that I'll be comparing and that are available for 2022. Reason being is down to price and lack of features for said price increase. These retail for $275, making them one of the most expensive football boots on the market, and it's basically exactly what you get from the Vapor 14 Elite with the addition of an elasticated Flyknit collar, which really offers no performance benefit at all. If you like the look of this and you can afford the extra 25 bucks, by all means go for it, but otherwise you'd be much better off just going for the $250 version of the exact same football boot. But in terms of objective performance and honestly just everything you would want from a pair of speed boots, these do it all. The New Balance Furon 6 Plus Pro is criminally underrated. I think what this football boot really has going for it that you won't get from any of the other options in this video is a soft sock-like knitted upper. I know that Flyknit, when it first came onto the scene with the Superfly 4 that so many people really love, part of the attraction of that football boot was the sock-like feel, which you no longer have in the Mercurial series since they've strayed away from the Flyknit material. And this is definitely different than past Flyknit models. I think the upper actually relates more closely to something like the OG Magista Obra than it does that Superfly 4, but it's so soft, it's so comfortable, and actually provides decent structure with the laces tied tight, giving you this locked in, secure, and responsive sensation. The boots are also one of the lightest speed boot options on the market. I think the only thing lighter is the Puma Ultra, and the sole plate and stud pattern is very good, although I must say I'm not in love with the fact that they have more or less ripped off the Nike Mercurial FG stud pattern. As far as pricing is concerned, $210 makes these very competitive and the second least expensive football boot on this list. They're also the only one that's available in a wide fit variation along with the regular fit version. So if you do have really wide feet, this would definitely be your best option in the speed boot category. Now, depending on personal preference, you could have these ranked much higher, and you could also have them ranked much lower. The laceless Adidas X Speed Flow Plus, retailing for $275, certainly isn't cheap, but what it is extremely unique. And really the fact that it is a laceless football boot is the polarizing aspect. At this point, you either love laceless or you hate laceless. There's really no in between. But in terms of providing one of the most unique experiences from a pair of football boots, this is one of the most unique boots that I've worn over the last 5 years. And for a laceless speed boot, where I've always complained that lockdown and general fit tends to be a struggle, for my foot at least, because laceless boots will vary in terms of quality of fit, based on the shape of your feet specifically, these just work extremely well. I was super impressed with them. The upper is comfortable. It offers an incredible touch on the ball. The laceless aspect really gives you this not wearing any shoes at all feeling that I think is so impressive. And then the speed frame with the Carbitex insert through the forefoot is just incredibly impressive from a responsiveness and general feel perspective. Great aggressive FG stud pattern. It really is a phenomenal pair of football boots, but again, the laceless boot thing isn't for everybody, so that's something you really have to keep in mind. Another football boot I've put in the middle of the pack that, depending on personal preference, you might rank these as the best or the worst, is the made in Japan Mizuno Morelia Neo 3 Beta, which is a really unique football boot in the speed category for a couple different reasons. Reason number one being the inclusion of kangaroo leather through the forefoot and toe box area. For those that were big fans of the leather F50 Adizero days, this is not only along those lines in terms of what it has on offer, it exceeds those football boots in terms of overall quality. This being a made in Japan product, it's some of the nicest leather you're going to find on any football boot, period. And the build quality and general construction is also top notch, where if durability is a concern, I would be betting that the made in Japan Mizuno Morelia Neo 3 is going to outlast any of the other football boots on this list. The knitted as well as textile component through the midfoot holds up really well from a fit, comfort, and lockdown perspective. Some of the most comfortable speed boots currently on the market, and you're also going to find a conical stud pattern that's more aggressive than you'd expect it to be based on how it looks, but also has that freedom to twist and pivot when your foot is planted in a world of speed boots that are all trending towards having very aggressive bladed studs that don't really twist all that well once your foot is in the ground. The downside is the pricing. These retail for $320, making them not just the most expensive football boots in this video, but also the most expensive inline model football boots currently on the market by quite a large margin. It must be said that they do make an elite model that retails for closer to $200. That's actually quite similar to these and offers a really nice experience, comparable to the other boots in this video. But if you want the best of the best and you can justify the price tag, there's nothing quite like these. Rounding out the top three is the Nike Mercurial Vapor 14 Elite, a football boot that retails for $250 and one that I think a lot of people might be surprised and upset to see so far down this list. And I want to be 100% clear in saying that these are top-notch football boots. They could easily be ranked number one. And in terms of objective performance characteristics, lockdown, responsiveness, overall traction, I think they are still the best of the best. However, when you consider your other options in terms of features as well as value, these do slip up ever so slightly, dropping them down to the 3 spot in my eyes. So what I think this football boot really does extremely well is feel like a pair of Mercurials. Nothing really has been able to mimic that sensation in terms of fit and the feel of the boots on your feet. They just make you feel quicker on the ball, and that is still true with the Vapor 14. If you've worn Mercurials for a long time, stick with Mercurials because nothing feels quite like them. What you're going to find with the Vaporposit upper is a super thin material that offers a premium barefoot touch on the ball, but maybe is a little bit lacking in terms of overall comfort. Considering that the boots aren't lighter than they are, I definitely think the Mercurials have gained a little bit of weight over the years, not to the point where they're heavy by any means, but again, some of its competition has shed some additional weight that I think is quite noticeable. They're more comfortable than you'd expect them to be, considering how tight they are. Again, the lockdown and responsiveness is top notch, and I think this is probably the most aggressive stud pattern on the market, not to mention the super connected feel that you get because of that anatomic sole plate base, something that you can't really see, but you definitely notice when you have these boots on your feet. The Mercurial is still a top option in the speed category, so don't get me wrong by ranking them in the 3 spot, but I definitely think there are alternatives to consider if you're after the best speed boot experience. In second place, I've picked an incredible product in the Adidas X Speedflow 0.1. Just like the Vapor 14, it retails for $250, making it expensive, but not crazy compared to some of the other options out there. And a football boot that I think really delivers in every possible aspect in terms of what you might want from a pair of speed boots, with some extras that you're probably not expecting. One of those extras being the comfort that you get from this upper. It's a textile-based material that is incredibly pliable. It doesn't have any cushion to it, meaning that the touch on the ball is very pure and very barefoot-like, but it moves with your foot so nicely and requires no break-in time at all. If you've worn speed boots in the past and just found them to be overly stiff and rigid, you don't get that sensation from this material because it has this slight elastic quality to it. There is a downside, however, to that, and that is even with the laces tied tight, you can feel that little bit of stretch when making cuts and changes of direction. Not to the point where it's detrimental to the responsiveness. These are still extremely responsive football boots, probably in the top 5 out there, but if you are comparing them to something like a Nike Mercurial, as well as some other boots on this list, I don't think they're quite as responsive as what you can get, but I'll sacrifice that little bit of lockdown, that little bit of responsiveness for the sake of additional comfort. I think the heel liner is top notch with these two pillows. Some people hate it. I'm personally a big fan of that. And then the speed frame with that Carbitex insert and the bladed stud pattern is just top notch. To me, this carbon insert through the forefoot is noticeable with every single step, and regardless of whether or not the energy return that it provides is actually helping you in any way at all, the fact that you can feel it with every step you take, I think is pretty revolutionary in terms of football boot tech, in that most of it is so gimmicky, it makes no impact on experience. This you notice at all times, and for that reason, I'm just so impressed with what Adidas have done here as an overall package. This is one of the best speed boots they've ever made, and in my opinion, one of the best speed boots from an objective performance standpoint of all time. And then finally, at the one spot, what I believe to be the best speed boot of 2022, the Puma Ultra 1.4, a football boot that when compared to its competition in the speed category, not only matches or beats anything when it comes to overall performance, it's also the least expensive by a long shot, destroying everything from a value for money perspective without compromising performance. And that's something that we just never see from football boots in general, let alone something in the speed category where everything is so driven on new technology that you typically pay a premium for. These retail for $200, making them the least expensive of the 7 boots in this video, and $50 less than its main competition from Adidas and Nike, which is just incredibly impressive considering the performance standard that these live up to. The upper is incredibly thin, this Matrix Evo material that they kind of brand as a knitted upper, but it's definitely more of a textile, very thin synthetic, no padding to it at all, super raw barefoot feel, translucent in some areas through the midfoot even, but with the laces tied tight, surprisingly structured, surprisingly comfortable, and just really, really responsive overall. Pair that up with the fact that these are by far the lightest football boots on the market, and they basically have a weightless sensation on your feet. They're noticeably lighter than anything else in this video and anything else currently available, which is super impressive. From a comfort standpoint, again, especially considering the lightweight construction, they're really, really good. They're unique from the perspective that you have this Grip Control Pro coating on the upper that does provide additional grip on the ball. Totally a personal preference thing. You might not like that at all, but for me, I'm personally a big fan of it. And then as far as the outsole is concerned, I like the external heel counter. I like the feel of this sole plate in that it's not overly stiff. It still has some flexibility to it, but still that little bit of spring back that you want. Again, maybe not to the same level as what you're gonna find from the Speed Flow with the speed frame construction and that Carbitex insert, but still top notch. And of course, this FG stud pattern is as aggressive as it gets, although I must say I'm not a big fan of the FG AG branding because I really don't think this is a great stud pattern for use on artificial grass. Nonetheless, for $200, from a value for money perspective, it destroys all of its competition. And in terms of overall objective performance, it's pretty much as good as it gets, and what I would argue is what a speed boot should be.